Indiana County 911. My brother's gone. Can you be a little more specific, sir? He took my brother. Who took him? I don't know who took him. I don't know what. Sir, they've done. Take a breath. Explain to me what happened.
And I looked out and there was this big red blinking UFO.
I can just say this. Something's going on in the woods. Something's going on.
They're not dogs, they're not coyotes. What could it be, right?
I had an encounter with a skunk ape, and it completely altered the course of my life.
I found a skull. I think you guys are going to want to come film this.
Put him out.
I just see it.
Sightings of a UFO hovering over a barn.
Millie woke up from a dream, and when I went into the bedroom, she said there's a monster on the wall.
They saw that the creature had run through a barbed wire fence. They were able to obtain hairs. They sent the hairs to their lab, and it came back as an unknown creature.
Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin.
What is up, bizarreites, and welcome back to the most bizarre show on the internet. I am the one that a few people refer to as Shane Squatch. Yeah! And Adam Sandler is pretty damn excited about that. And next to me, I have the one, the only, the big bad boo daddy, Sir Orin Felix.
Look at you gripping daddy?
Felix, I'm gonna get you.
I had a little bit more on the end.
I was going to say, are you just adding like something new to the end? Like progressively, it's just getting a longer and longer intro. Like at some point, the intro is just going to be the entire show.
Yeah, it's just going to be a just giant montage of just sound clips until we get to the end. See, I like that one enough. I figured I should run with it for a few weeks. I'll probably change it up maybe in like 2-3 weeks or so. But for now, at least I can add a couple onto the end, and make it kind of exciting. Makes it so I don't have to start fresh every week. So yeah, there you go. I got a good clip of "Come here, Felix. Come here, Felix."
Hey, the possibilities are endless, right?
Yeah, right. I'm going to save that one for later. I might end up using that for something else.
Speaking of endless possibilities, I hear we have some news and updates for the listeners and viewers.
So I guess before we get into news and updates, we have some news first. For anybody that may not have caught it, the legendary Ozzy Osbourne has passed away yesterday, which is very, very unfortunate. How do you feel about that, sir? Were you an Ozzy fan?
I mean, I'm not like a huge Ozzy, Black Sabbath, whatever fan. But obviously, we're very quickly running out of rock stars, so that kind of makes me sad. I mean, he's one of the big names in rock and roll, and pretty soon we're not going to have any more of these guys left. So, I mean, it's definitely a bummer, but God knows this guy lived a full life. I mean, it's kind of hard to feel sorry for him, I guess. But yeah, sad nonetheless. And as long as we've still got Willie Nelson and Keith Richards alive and kicking, I think we're good to go for a little bit longer. But yeah, definitely sad news. And kind of piggybacking off of that, the Hulkster died today. So it's just been a bad day for aging pop culture icons.
Well, I mean, one of those things with Ozzy, see, I was like, not necessarily like, oh my God, I'm a big Oz fan, but it was one of those things that my parents listened to him. It was always kind of on in the background and stuff. So it's kind of one of those things that I didn't have like a super close feel to the music, or it was like my favorite thing, but it's one of those things that still kind of was in the background of my childhood. So it's still kind of hid in a weird spot. But honestly, that last concert last week where the last song was Mom, I'm Going Home, and he was like crying while he was doing it, dude, like that dude knew he was gonna go. And then I saw an interview afterwards where he said he stopped taking all of his medications so that he could sing properly, to just do one last wanted because that was the one last thing that he wanted to do. Like, it was just sad, man. Like I'm happy that he was able to play that last show and stuff. Like, he went out like a legend and stuff, but it was a sad ending, but kind of a heartfelt ending, I guess you could say, but I don't know, man. It's just one of those things that it's just the build up at the end that kind of made it like extra sad. But on the other thing, of course, Hulk Hogan, one of my childhood heroes, man. Like that is so fucking sad, man. Like that guy was just at Trump rally recently. Seemed like he was like up and active. Like I didn't think that one was coming anytime soon, man. Like Hulk Hogan, like what? Like
me, Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, that guy. Like how? I don't understand.
Well, I know he's been kind of problematic, we'll just say, in recent years and in his older age. But I mean, every 10-year-old boy loves Hulk Hogan. I mean, I'm a big wrestling fan. He's not my favorite wrestler, never was, but Yeah, sad nonetheless. And now he's saying his prayers and taking his vitamins in heaven, I guess. So.
Hey, well, at least he gets to have one last death match. Well, I don't want to call it a death match, but one last match
That's
at least
morbid.
with, actually eternal matches with, Macho Man Randy Savage, like all the legends, Andre the Giant.
The mega powers.
The mega powers, man. So at least he's got a little bit more wrestling left in him. But I guess with that news, of course.
You remember me? You spent 4 months in my house.
Well, no, I didn't, Ozzy. I'm sorry. He just wanted to be remembered one last time. He had to throw in one last line, just like his one last show. But
and hey, I guess Ozzy in a roundabout way is kind of paranormal related at this point, since like Jack Osbourne does all his like ghost hunting and Bigfoot hunting and things like that. So hey, it's sort of kind of topical.
Yeah, I guess you're kind of right with that one. At least we should maybe at some point do a little episode to see if he's had any interesting investigations. But maybe we should check into that first to see if there is anything interesting, or if it's like Ghost Adventures interesting, where it's not anything we can really cover on the show. But
bet it's probably more like that. But anyway, not to derail us.
Yeah, going into our news as far as the actual show goes. First and foremost, I don't know if I mentioned on the last episode, but I unfortunately got rid of the Discord. I quickly remembered why I didn't want to deal with it in the first place, and I figured that I should move my ventures over to other things to help try to promote and grow the show. So with that being said, of course, we are now on YouTube and Twitch doing stuff live. So if anybody wants to come and check that out, make sure you guys follow the YouTube and the Twitch channel. And this will actually be the first broadcast that we have done for Bizarre Encounters live on Twitch. So, if you're catching it now, we appreciate you for checking out the show on Twitch.
And our next episode of Bizarre Inquiries, our YouTube live show, is going to be August the 7th. That's a Thursday. It's going to be roughly 7:15 Eastern time on the Open Minds Media YouTube channel. You guys be sure to submit questions or articles or videos or anything you want us to inquire about, and also join in with us, join in with us in the chat. So it's a lot of fun to talk to you guys as we're going through the material, so definitely remember to do that as well. One more piece of news/updates. We will not have a regular episode of Bizarre Encounters dropping next week, but the following week will be Bizarre Inquiries, so you guys be sure to join us for that.
And if you guys might be interested in supporting the show, how can they do that, Orin?
Well, we have several ways you can do that. You can follow the show on Instagram or Facebook.
You guys can even check out the Patreon with 2 tiers available, ad-free /early access and full access.
You can check out the merch store with t-shirts starting at just $15.68 plus shipping. Wow, that's oddly specific.
I knew you were going to throw that in there. I'm happy for that. You guys can also leave a review for the show. We would greatly appreciate it. And we, of course, would read it on the show and give you guys a shout out. 1 and 5 stars only.
Or 5 stars, yes. And you can also share the show.
Or you guys can even keep catching those live shows on the OMM YouTube and Twitch channels. Anything you guys do over there, keep chatting and all that fun stuff. We greatly appreciate it.
And as always, all the shit we've mentioned is in the link tree in the show description.
And just one last thing before we get into the show.
If anyone is interested in being a guest on the show or getting up with us for any reason whatsoever, Shane, tell them how they can do that.
First and foremost, you guys can email us at bizarreencounters@outlook.com, or you guys can give us a call or text on the OMM hotline. That number is 313-364-1551. And if you guys happen to have missed that, it is available down in the show description.
All right, guys. So tonight's episode is one that Shane put together. It's a topic that I know he's been working on for a while and been excited to share with you guys. We're going to do kind of like an old school alien episode tonight, since we did an old school cryptid episode last week. This was something that I wasn't super duper familiar with. So I'm excited to learn along with our listeners. Shane, why don't you tell everybody what we got going on tonight?
So tonight, this is one that I've been wanting to put together for a while, kind of like you've been saying. It's one of those ones that I kind of hear sporadically, but I haven't really heard too many shows really give it just. And the reason it took me so long was because I wanted to make sure I read the book, added all the good details to it, checked around online, make sure there wasn't other interviews where he was mentioning other things. So without further ado, we will be diving into the Cisco Grove alien encounter, and it is going to be referenced from this wonderful book right here, Aliens in the Forest, the Cisco Grove UFO Encounter. The 2 investigators were Terrace and Ruben Uritia. I don't know how to say their names. That was why I kind of left it out of the show notes, but they were the primary investigators for it. But this story, of course, came from Donald Shrum himself, which we will be diving into right now. So first and foremost, to get into it, Donald Shrum's bizarre encounter in Cisco Grove, California, is a case that has endured in the UFO community for over the decades, despite its rather strange nature. As one ufologist stated in 2015, perhaps the reason it is completely absurd, and yet there is a good reason to suspect it happened. Aside from the bizarre details it offers, one of the main reasons for suspicion from skeptics is the fact that the incident has only one witness. However, Donald Shrum only relatively recently, as of 2011, allowed the use of his real name with these accounts / writing of the book Aliens in the Forest: The Cisco Grove UFO Encounter. This was due to his fear of losing his job as a rocket propulsion engineer. I figured that you might have an interest in that. And Donald Shrum even turned down a considerable amounts of money due to his stance. Hardly the action of a hoaxer, in my opinion. And I guess you probably want to make a comment on that rocket propulsion engineer thing before you go too much farther.
Oh, no, I mean, I think it kind of speaks for itself. You know, any of our longtime listeners, we are big fans of Jack Parsons on this show. Our boy, Jack Parsons, excuse me. And, you know, he was a rocket propulsion engineer and had all sorts of other strange things happen to him. So I think it's kind of odd that this guy was also a rocket propulsion engineer and had some strange shit happen to him. So
and
I'm excited to get into it and learn more.
From what I was reading too, he wasn't just like a grunt. Like this guy was like a pretty intelligent guy working pretty far up there. Where he was working on stuff with I believe like the spaceships and stuff like that at the time. So he was working on stuff. So getting back into it, whatever did happen that evening in September 1964 in the northern region of California is open to debate. However, it would recently seemingly appear that Shrum is a credible witness, as his account is one that should receive further investigation and comparison alongside other ever-emerging incidents. There are a few details in Donald Shrum's account that appear in incidents such as the recent Peruvian face peelers and the Victorian age Spring Hill Jack reports. So just some additional information that I wanted to give as far as this area goes. This was just like a little reference in the book that they had like a picture of the area, like a map of it from like back in the day, and they had like a little paragraph underneath it. And it said, back in 1848, the area of Cisco Grove was part of the gold country in California. Pacer County was named in 1951 when it became a mining town for gravel deposits, which also contained gold. On top of containing gold, this area also yielded other natural treasures such as uranium, which we all know all seems to be linked to UFO activity. And so does the gold, of course. So I just figured that we'd throw that one in there because maybe it's important, maybe it's not. But either way, it still need to get thrown in there.
I mean, still kind of an interesting detail, especially with like you said, the whole gold, alien, Anunnaki type connections. And also kind of like we talked about in last week's episode with the Grafton Monster. You know, mining and disturbing the earth goes hand in hand with a lot of these high strangeness accounts. So just, you know, how it seems like we get on these kicks with things and we don't plan all these kind of connections between different topics. But here's a small one, at least, to get us started tonight.
See, and I added this detail in because there's a spot later on, you'll see what I'm talking about, that just seems kind of weird. And I'll point it back out when we get to that point. But getting into the actual encounter itself. On the evening of September 4th, 1964, 28-year-old Donald Shrum, along with two friends, Vincent Alvarez and Tim Trueblood, were hunting in the Tahoe National Forest near Cisco Grove, California. All had considerable experience bow hunting and were all overall general outdoorsmen. Don, in particular, was an experienced hunter of 10 years, hunting with guns and a bow, and he commented he preferred the bow and had better luck with it anyways. On this particular night, after having established a base camp about 3 miles from Route 40, they decided to go late hunting for deer. Perhaps due to their comfort in the outdoor environment, with the night fast approaching no less, all agreed they would push deep into the woods in pursuit of their targets, and if they had to, they would spend the night in the woods and rendezvous back at the camp in the morning. Before long, all were separated and venturing after their potential kills. The men had no walkie-talkies or other means of communication, but kept each other in sight for a while and remained within shouting distance. They quickly became separated when Don began on top of a ridge, realizing that he would have to go around, which was a greater distance than any of them actually anticipated. With daylight losing its battle against the night, Shrum would make the decision to find somewhere to bed down for the night, or more accurately, bed up. Shrum had with him his military-style belt, which allowed him to secure himself to a tree. Given the number of wild animals who might wish to turn the tables on the hunter, Shrum believed this was a preferred option to camping to camping on the ground, alone and ultimately defenseless. And just as an additional detail, they had like some news reports, and apparently around this time, there was a lot of like cougar attacks in this area, supposedly. So probably the most logical thing to do was probably strap yourself up in a tree. But, these...
Unless you want to get attacked by a cougar. That could be kind of sexy.
That's a different type of cougar. You're not looking for those in the forest. You're looking for those in the city, my friend.
Ooh la la.
What is that fucking thing?
It's a cougar.
So before you jump back in, I kind of just did want to point out that all this happened in a national forest. That's kind of funny too.
Yep, of course. All this weird stuff happens in a national forest. And like the encounter gets even weirder because just wait till we get into like the description of the UFO and these beings. I made sure that I got pictures for it because you guys, you have to see this. Like this shit is so fucking weird. Like it almost kind of reminds me of, I don't know, like some of the like you remember Ron Moorhead who was talking about like the light up like orb bars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The UFO wasn't like a lit up bar orb, but for whatever reason, it just kind of reminded me of that and seemed like reminiscent of it because it almost kind of seems like, you know how you look at two pieces of technology, they may not be the same, and you kind of just say, those two things look like they kind of belong together. Like Apple headphones, Apple phone, like Google phone, Google headphones. Like they're separate things, but they look like they belong together, right? When you see this UFO and you think about like the bars that Ron Moorhead would talk about, which was also California, but a little bit more south, like it just seems like they would belong to each other. And once you get into like the aliens themselves here and you see like what they were doing exactly, then the orbs, or not the orbs, but the orb bars almost kind of take on like this probe mentality. Like, I don't know if they're related, but when I was reading through this, I just had this weird thought in the back of my mind that they just seemed like they were something that were reminiscent of each other.
All right, guys, we got to take another break. We'll be right back. And now we're getting back to the bazaar.
But hopping back in, shortly after securing himself for the night, however, a strange light appeared in the distance. Of more concern to Shrum, it was zigzagging around the trees at low altitude and heading towards him. He stated it looked like a flashlight or a lantern at first, bobbing up and down, but it was below the horizon. I saw it go up and over a tree and then down, and I thought maybe it's a helicopter. I thought my friends had gotten a helicopter from the Forest Service and figured they were coming out looking for me.
So, if you don't mind, I was saving my comment till you got to this part. The bobbing up and down and kind of looking like a flashlight or lantern, that sounds very much like orb type activity to me. We talk all the time about these orbs being sighted in national parks, national forests, what have you, and, in concert with other high strangeness, cryptid activity, alien sightings, whatnot. So I thought that was like a really interesting aspect, and I actually highlighted it when I was reading through your notes because I wanted to bring that up. So I'm glad you talked about the whole kind of orb connection to this.
And I'll bring up the picture of the UFO next before we hop back in. But I forgot to bring this up. This is Donald Shrum back when he was 28 when this experience happened. This is one of the pictures from the book if anybody was curious what this gentleman looks like. And supposedly this was the tree that he lodged himself up into after climbing up on this ridge. As it mentioned in the book, he grabbed onto a couple branches and then he basically shimmied himself up this tree and kind of he wasn't on a branch. He was leaned up against the back of the tree, but I'll show you some pictures when we get farther in so you can kind of see his location in the tree, but still interesting. This was the tree itself. And then getting into some of the UFO drawings, this is him lodged up in the tree, and see what I'm talking about where he's not strapped to the branch, he's strapped to the back of the tree. But this is what this thing looked like. This was the original, when it was coming up to him. And this is one of the people who were researching its artist rendition. And then this one is Donald Shrum's rendition that he redrew in 2000, showing what he saw back then.
So that one there kind of looks more like the kind of cigar-shaped UFOs we talk about a lot nowadays.
Yeah, it's cigar-shaped, but also kind of like I said, it just feels like it has that same reminiscence as those bars that Ron Moorhead was talking about. Mm-hmm. It just looks like the technology belongs together. You see what I'm talking about from the picture?
Yeah. So this rendering here looks much more almost pill shaped than the previous one does.
Yeah, this was one of the ones that was done by one of the artists. And like I said, this was Donald Shrum, obviously not the best artist in the world. So I think he was trying his best. But obviously he was involved in writing the book. And from what I was reading, he said that like these were better renditions of it. It was just that was his picture that he drew when he was talking about it. But hopping back in. All right. Thinking his two friends had arranged a search for him after all, he jumped from the tree and quickly released 3 of his flares to give away his location. As he was waving his arms and yelling for attention, he began to realize what was heading his way, and it wasn't a rescue helicopter at all. The glowing object finally stopped around 50 yards from his position. It was spherical, but unlike anything he had seen before. He quickly made his way back up the tree, making sure his bow was at the ready. Fear was now escalating at an unstoppable rate within him. That fear would rise even more when 3 small humanoid creatures emerged from the craft and began making their way straight towards him. As they came closer, he could see that while 2 of them were most definitely humanoid, the third was more robot-like. And let me bring up the pictures of these guys. Well, these are them emerging, coming from the trees towards him. Another cool artist rendition, of course. And these are supposedly what these guys looked like. And I'm going to get into his verbatim description of these as I have these pictures up. This is direct quotes from the book. He stated, the humanoids were short and stocky, about 5 feet tall, dressed in a tight-fitting, light-colored uniform, possibly a whitish silver. The uniform appeared to be one piece, and it had bellows at the elbows and knees of the suit. The creature's head was covered by either a tight-fitting hood or helmet. Their faces were dark and featureless, the only striking characteristic being circular eyes that almost appeared like welding goggles. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, before I get into the description of the robot, did you have any comments?
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of chime in with this circular eyes that almost appeared like welder goggles.
Do you kind of see them in the picture? They're kind of faded out, but you can kind of see them a little bit.
Yeah, this whole thing kind of sounds vaguely reminiscent to me of the Hopkinsville Goblins, like these silverish kind of suits, or some people say that the goblins, their skin was this silver, but it seems to me that they were probably wearing some sort of suit, and they also had these, big, dark, goggle-like eyes. So obviously, it doesn't appear that the humanoids that Mr. Shrum encountered had like those big ears or anything, but just a couple connections right off the bat that I noticed.
And just to like throw it in too, I know we talk a lot about the whole idea about like underground dwellers, which is definitely a possibility when it comes to the big eyes, the goggles, but there seems to still be this like UFO connection, even with like the Hopkinsville Goblins, that there was the UFO scene beforehand. And I mean, there are 2 different possibilities. Either one, you have the possibility that these things are coming from underground, and that's where the UFOs are coming from. And you get into the whole theory that I've thrown before about these things actually using the magnetic fields of the planet, and that's how they're able to move zero gravities, because they're using magnetic fields. Or the other possibility, I mean, I don't know how it would exist with life, because assumably, you need some type of like sun or some type of light in order for life to start to thrive on a planet. But is it possible that there could be certain planets in certain galaxies, whatever, that don't necessarily spin the same, or they kind of have the same thing kind of going on as like certain places on Earth where, you'll have like 8 months where it's just dark and then there's a couple months of light? Do you think that like over time things would adapt to kind of fit more towards the dark than towards the light if they get more time where it's towards the dark, where they would start getting these bigger like goggles and eyes? Because I know a lot of people throw the underground theory, but if you want to get into the extraterrestrial theory, like I'm just trying to think about the possibility about how there could be like a dark planet or something where you would develop to have bigger eyes, or maybe, I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think that's definitely a possibility. We see that basically here on Earth with, like fish and stuff that live in caves become blind and, albino and things like that. So, I mean, if we can see that happening with lower life forms here on Earth, it would make sense that would, theoretically happen somewhere out there in the universe. The only thing I'll kind of caveat with that is, you would think if these highly advanced civilizations had the ability for interstellar travel and, all these technological advances, they probably would have created lights at some point. But I don't know, maybe their eyes, developed to this, big bulbous goggle looking extent before they developed technology and lights. Who knows? But I mean, nonetheless, I think it's a fun kind of topic to think about and connect to other things we've talked about on the show.
I mean, definitely, that's what I was thinking. They probably developed beforehand, and then it's a matter of like they just don't need as much light. Like they probably have lights, they're just more like dim lights, and that kind of goes into the other possibility I was thinking.
Oh, almost like a moon-eyed people type situation.
Yeah, like so they still can take in light. It's just they spend more time in the dark, and it's just kind of dimmed light. But even kind of expanding onto that, I mean, if it's theoretically possible that, say, like a species planet or something got destroyed and they've been living on like spaceships or some type of like something that they built that's been existing in space for who knows how long at this point. You know, if you're spending time in space, you're looking off into like the dark vastness of space. You're just seeing little lights off in the distance. Like, would it eventually get to a point where you might start to develop where your eyes would get bigger in order to pull up more light and be able to see better, like in those space conditions? And even just having bigger eyes, being able to probably focus in and see things a lot clearer than somebody like that has human-sized eyes possibly. And then even from there, I mean, if you're living out in space and your planet was destroyed, whatever, you know, assumably you have some type of like nuclear power or something like that. But even on the theoretical side, I mean, you probably consume less power having to light your ship up completely if you just have dim runner lights throughout the ship. I mean, it seems like it inevitably could work, you know? Like maybe it has something to do with just them being in space, that if you're spend enough time in space, you start to develop where you fit the needs of space. Because, you know, you talk about with humans that when they spend too much time up in space, like they start losing like muscle, they start losing this, like what's the inevitable end process of that? Could it be what we're looking at as grays, that the reason why they don't have all this muscle development and they have giant eyes is because, you know, they lost that muscle development because they didn't need it because they were out in space and then they developed bigger eyes to see better out in space? I mean, definitely another possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think all those are, you know, definitely possibilities, but I think obviously we could sit here and discuss what ifs all night, but I think the big point about all this is this motif of like these large eyes or goggle-like eyes that keep popping up time and time again. And a lot of the different subjects we talk about, like we said, the moon-eyed people, the Hopkinsville goblins, and then of course like alien grays, and now
maybe
this
in
creature.
Flatwoods.
Yeah. So, I mean, apart from, you know, all the what ifs and the possibilities out there, I think just the fact that this is a motif we keep seeing pop up time and time again is, you know, kind of the more important point here to me.
And speaking of that, of course, getting into the description of the robot, because I'm sure you probably have some thoughts on this one too. The creature Shrum referred to as the robot had reddish orange eyes, no apparent nose, and a large mouth and square jaw mechanism. He called it a hinge jaw or something, and added that the creature's head looked metal or dark gray of some kind. Also, its hands resembled human hands wearing the gloves from a suit of armor and appeared hinged at the finger joints.
Okay, so this encounter happened in 1964, correct?
Yes, sir.
So I read through the notes, but I hadn't seen these pictures that you're sharing with us until right now. So when I saw this picture of the robot, man, this is like the most like 1950s ass B movie Day the Earth Stood Still ass looking robot I've ever seen.
It looks like what's that name of that movie when we were kids? The cartoon with the giant robot.
The Iron Giant?
Yeah, it looks like the Iron Giant.
So like I actually believed this story a lot more before I saw the picture of the robot. Like, and this could be one of those situations, of course, with the phenomenon wearing masks and presenting itself based on the person and, you know, kind of their frame of reference. But I don't know, something about the depiction of this robot just makes this whole thing seem slightly less credible to me.
Well, let me throw this in. He says that it's a robot, but, you know, look at the two together. Could it be possible that the robot is simply just one of the ones on the bottom wearing some type of suit, and that helmet, the locking jaw, has some type of like purpose? Like maybe it's like I don't know, maybe it's like their defense suit. Like if they're going down and they're scouting or doing whatever, they send somebody down in one of these suits and it's like their berserker suit or something like that. Like it may look ridiculous, but sometimes some of these like bio suits the government works on look a little bit ridiculous. Like the body structure looks semi the same. The hinge joints look the same. Like even looking at like these guys right here, like the hinge joints are the same, the little elbow joints, like everything kind of looks the same. Like it could just be whatever this being is wearing like some type of suit.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely possible. But like I said, what I keep going back to is, okay, this guy was 28 years old in 1964. This is the exact fucking like mental image somebody who was a teenager in the 1950s would have had for what a robot looks like, you know?
Ain't that the truth? Yeah. I mean, not the alien thing. I mean, let's see. When was like the typical image of like an alien really like solidified? That was probably like the 50s, right?
Well, I don't know. So, I mean, this is something we've talked about on the show a lot. Before the Betty and Barney Hill encounter, there was this idea of like space men. And this is almost more, you know, in line with that kind of thinking. And then once the Betty and Barney Hill encounter happened, the kind of popular depictions and kind of cultural zeitgeist around aliens shifted more toward like the grays. So at this point in time, I mean, I don't know off the top of my head what year Betty and Barney Hill was. It was around this same time period, I believe.
Wasn't it like 58 or 68 or something like that? I feel like there's an 8 in there.
56, and this is probably something we should know off the top of our heads. But yeah, that same general time period. But yeah, this seems very much closer to the whole like space men idea, rocket ships, you know, all that kind of like Back to the Future type ideas of aliens and space travel than, you know, the later depictions of the Greys and whatnot.
So just to bring it up, because I feel bad not knowing it, September 19th, 1961. So that was 3 years before this that the Betty and Barney Hill encounter happened.
Yeah, so just a few years before this then.
Yep. We apologize, guys, for the interference, but we will be right back. And now back to the show. So hopping back in, let's see here. The two humanoids began to shake the tree, obviously in an effort to force him from it.
Come here, you little fuck!
He began to cling on it with all of his strength. However, when a white vapor shot out from the robotic creature's mouth, he later realized it knocked him unconscious. Only momentarily, however. Aside from an intense feeling of nausea, he was unharmed. He began lighting the matches he used for his flares, dropping them towards the trio in an effort to force them away. Although they would back away for a short time, they continued their assault. Do you have a comment on this one before I keep going?
No, you can go ahead.
Let's see if I can bring up the next picture here. I know. There it is. I got a picture of him getting assaulted by the vapor, of course, because all this wonderful artwork throughout the book. By the time Shrum had managed to load an arrow into his bow and let it fly in the robot's direction, seconds later, a shower of sparks flew into the air, suggesting a direct hit. As quickly as he could, he fired 2 more arrows in the general vicinity of the creature's location, causing them to back away. However, before he could take advantage of the situation, a second robot appeared, and once again, a white vapor hit Shrum, causing him to lose consciousness. And I do have pictures of him, of course, throwing stuff down from the tree lit on fire towards the humanoids. And I also have this awesome picture of the robot reflecting the arrow.
Yeah, that's not doing a whole lot to discredit my 1950s B-movie robot theory.
Tell me that doesn't look like Iron Man. Like, just because of like the impact on the chest, it looks like the middle chest bolt with the hand back and the hand forward. Like, that looks like a straight up Iron Man pose right there.
Well, no, I think you nailed it a few minutes ago. It looks like the Iron Giant. Like, for all of our listeners out there, like, this is exactly what this thing looks like. So just whatever your mental image of old school, you know, 1950s era robot is, I promise you that's exactly what it looks like.
Minus the little like fringe on the top of the Iron Giant's head. That's ideally it.
Yeah.
As before, he must have been out for only a short while, as the creatures were still below him and it was still very much dark. However, the two humanoids were now attempting to climb the tree. He began to light anything he could and then drop it down as to deter them, including pieces of his clothing, his baseball cap, and a few coins, which the humanoids collected for some reason. When he could no longer use clothes, he would send branches, pines, and anything else that he could get his hands on. And this was the point that I was trying to make, and I'll bring it back up in a couple paragraphs, that these things are like scouting. They're looking for stuff. Like, they picked up this guy's coins, they collected them, and from what he said, they took them. They didn't take anything else, but they were interested in the coins, and they like inspected them and then took them.
Well, I'm going to have a point about the coins, but I'm going to wait till you make a point here later that I know is in the notes.
And here's another picture of, this is one that Donald Shrum did. Like I said, not the best artist. It kind of looks like an elementary school kid did it. But the two humanoids, the robots hanging off to the side and him sitting up in the tree strapped to it, as I was saying, like strapped to the back of the tree, because seeing the original picture, it's kind of like, how did you strap yourself to that tree? And shooting his bows down at this robotic creature. So with an effort to deter them by shaking the tree and throwing what he could, the humanoids would back up from the base of the tree about 25 feet. While this was going on, 3 or 4 more humanoids appeared and combed the area for what seemed like samples of vegetation.
And this is the point I was going to wait for. So if they were collecting samples of vegetation and they're collecting coins, I mean, what are coins made out of? They're made out of metal and elements that are here on Earth. So I think that makes a lot of sense in light of this collecting samples of vegetation. And here again, this 3 or 4 more of these little humanoid bug-eyed things showing up, also very reminiscent of Hopkinsville.
Mm-hmm. And just to throw in another point, like he was up in the tree, so he was kind of looking at them and assuming that they were picking up vegetation. Could it also have been possible that they may have been picking up like ground samples to figure out what was in the area to see if they maybe could take something from the area, aka the gold and uranium, and like you were saying, connecting in with taking the coins? Like, I think their interest may have been in the science of the vegetation, but what I think they were really looking for was a particular like material.
Well, and this really isn't a spoiler, but it seemed like they weren't like malevolent toward this guy. They weren't trying to hurt him or anything. They were like kind of fucking with him more than anything else, which again, very Hopkinsville-esque. You know, these things weren't necessarily like trying to attack and harm these guys. They were just kind of screwing with them and seemed curious more than anything else. So, I mean, I know we're going to talk about other connections here later on, but that's one that I keep going back to that you didn't explicitly lay out in the notes that I just think is super duper interesting.
I wish I would have, because thinking of another connection, him shooting the robot seems pretty reminiscent again of the dude shooting the Hopkinsville Goblin, and then it just bounces back up and continues on what it's doing. He shot the robot, it sparked, and then it just continued on what it was doing. So
exactly.
Same thing.
And in Hopkinsville, they talked about, you know, this like metal pinging sound when they shot these things, like a bullet hitting a bucket. So yes, very similar.
And hopping back in, while this nocturnal standoff played out, the strange aerial vehicle suddenly shot upwards and out of sight. The strange creatures below, however, continued, undeterred by these events, and while Shrum could hold them off temporarily, they would ultimately return. Then, at some point during the night, the two robots appeared beneath Shrum's tree and appeared to link up. He said they stood facing each other, and it just looked like a bunch of flashing going on between them, like arc flashes. They just lit up the whole area beneath the tree, going back and forth between the two. And I also do have a picture of this supposedly happening from the book, if you were kind of curious.
Okay, so I was curious about that. Like the direct quote wasn't like super clear. So it looks like from the kind of drawing rendition here, it looks like it's just like sparks going from their like one chest of the robot to the other. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was described as basically there was like an arc spark going back and forth between the two chests of the robots, and then it'll continue on with what ends up happening after. But yeah, they were like standing face to face underneath the tree and like lighting up the area with these like hopping arc sparks going back and forth from between each other's chests.
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
And the next thing Shrum knew, a thick cloud of the knockout vapor was heading in his direction. In the seconds that followed, he was knocked unconscious yet again. So I don't know if there's a connection between the arc reactions and that vapor, but I don't know. Like I'm still, I don't know what exactly the robots were doing trying to light up the area. Like, two birds, one stone. Maybe they're just trying to scare him out of the tree. I don't know what they're interested. Like, it doesn't seem like they're trying to necessarily hurt him. It just seems like you kind of mentioned, like they're interested in him. So the arc thing gets kind of weird, because is it like, are they trying to hurt him, or are they just trying to like create a giant spark to like scare him out of the tree? Or, I mean, even going into the whole like light aspect of like UFOs and things like that, like, I don't know, maybe is it possible this arc reaction could have been something that they were trying to do to, quote, like abduct him or something like that, possibly? I mean, what's your thoughts on it?
So I know this is something we're going to touch on a little bit at the end, but the whole kind of knockout vapor thing reminds me a lot of Flatwoods and this kind of mist that made people sick. And they talked about in the Flatwoods Encounter also how like the spacecraft had like this like buzzing, almost like electrical magnetism to it. I almost wonder if it's like something of that nature that was going on here. And maybe this like knockout gas is just a side effect of whatever, the process of converting energy for these spacecrafts or these robots or whatever is.
And I was going to leave this towards the end for like theories and stuff like that, but talking about the whole aspect of the UFO phenomenon, like I always do, that I think that there's definitely like a human component to it. Talking about like the mind control aspect that the government's been diving into for years, the LSD experiments, all of that type of stuff. Could it have been possible, considering that this was only a couple years after Betty and Barney Hill, and I threw in my whole theory on that with using psychedelics possibly to influence those people? Is it possible that this vapor could have been another experiment as far as creating some type of mind control or some type of vapor that you'd be able to abduct people with? And the reason why these look like ridiculous robot suits from the 50s is because they were people, and these other things that we're searching were people. And I don't know, whatever the government's interest was in the area, like who knows? It's a national park. They could have had something beyond what we're even thinking there could have been possibly looking for there. Like they could have been looking for some other phenomenon altogether, but I don't know, like it doesn't seem as ridiculous if you correlate it to it possibly being humans in the whole UFO abduction phenomenon.
So I think that's a tremendous point. And I was kind of going to piggyback off of that before you got there. So, okay, let's just for argument's sake, say the Betty and Barney Hill encounter was a true to foil alien abduction, no kind of government chicanery going on there. It's an actual abduction. So if they see this, they being the government, see this as an opportunity to, like you said, experiment with humans and whatnot, like you said, it would make sense that, okay, our technology at that point probably wasn't where we could replicate the Greys and what happened to Betty and Barney Hill, but we got these 1950s ass looking robots. We can do that. And something that I thought was kind of interesting as you were talking through this, yes, this is a national park, national forest, whatever it was, but you talked about kind of the uranium and mineral deposits. And what popped into my head is, I guess it's probably been about a year ago now, but do you remember when we talked about the hurricane conspiracy theories here in North Carolina?
Yeah, and just for the sake of the listeners, though, just refresh them up a bit on the I remember, but just for the listeners' sake, in case they didn't listen to Bizarre Inquiries.
Okay, so I live in the state of North Carolina. About a year ago, the area around Asheville, which is in the mountains, had this like horrible hurricane hit. This is an area that, hurricanes don't hit. Never happened before. This was like terrible, like basically decimated whole towns, wiped entire towns off the map. It still hasn't recovered, a year later. And so in the wake of this, a lot of kind of conspiracy theories popped up. And what was interesting about it, basically this happening right down the road in real time, seeing it, even people that like I work with that aren't conspiracy people, or talking about like some of these conspiracy theories. But anyway, one of the big ones is this area where this happened contains like one of the largest lithium deposits in the world. So that almost got me thinking, well, to back up a second, a lot of people have suggested like weather manipulation type stuff. And, this was all a play for the government to seize this land to get these lithium deposits. But anyway, I almost wonder if there's like something like that going on here, where the government almost wanted these mineral reserves and this uranium and whatnot for whatever their purposes were. And I know that was like super long-winded and a tangent, but anyway, it's just what it made me think of.
No, I definitely think that, like I said, it seems like I like getting into the UFO stuff, don't get me wrong, but I feel like the more research I do, the more of these connecting ties I get into, where it's like, yes, this is UFOs. Yes, this definitely seems like it has some human touches to it. And this is definitely one of those ones. And again, just going into like national parks and stuff like that, like I feel like there's, no matter what it is, there's a million conspiracies on why those particular areas are designated. Typical consensus is because of their beauty, but I think it's because of other dynamics to them. But as part of like the main psyop, because of course, if you're doing these continued experiments, so to speak, you kind of have to fit the boxes and check the boxes as far as UFO stuff goes. So like he said, they were collecting vegetation, but were they just doing that so that it would fit the motif and be part of the story? But again, they were actually collecting like soil samples to figure out where exactly stuff was. And they were just trying to play aliens to make it seem like, oh, this is a weird alien thing, you know, so everybody will associate with that instead of them being in this area looking for a particular thing. And I'm kind of curious now because I'm making these big connections now with like the stuff in the area. I want to see if I can find this exact spot and see if anything's like happened to it. But I don't even know if you'd find that information because obviously if they're secretly looking for this shit, even if they totally like tore up an area looking for stuff, I feel like it would be one of those things that's like covered on Google Maps. Like you wouldn't have access to that area to be able to go out there. Like I'm curious how deep the cover up goes if there actually was government interest in something in the area.
Well, and something that happened this long ago, yeah, it's probably going to be very hard to find any sort of information that corroborates that. So that's probably one of those things that even if there was something going on, that's probably been lost to time at this point.
True. And before we hop back in, I got to take a second on every single show to say what's up to Bloodchucker, aka Mans, who just popped into the chat with his usual Shayn Daddy and the big bad Squatch. I don't know what that one is, but I guess I'll bring it up on screen just for the sake of it because that kind of just broke my brain for a minute. I was going to read that quick and it just fucked my brain up.
That's like the remix.
It's the remix.
Daddy and the big bad Squatch.
I like it.
That sounds like a radio morning show.
He did it better than we did.
Hey, that doesn't take much.
Yeah, you're not wrong there.
That's a very low bar to clear. That's like being the hottest waitress at Denny's.
That's one of the best analogies I've heard in a long time. I like that.
Sit tight, guys. We got to pay some bills. And now back to the show.
All right, popping back in. When he awoke from this final time, he was alone. There was no sign of the ship having returned, but all of the creatures, including the robots, were gone. He was barely hanging from the tree by his belt. He could also see that by now, dawn was quickly heading his way. By the time daylight hit, he dropped himself from the tree, dazed and tired, but largely unhurt. He would set out for the prearranged meeting place of the campsite from the previous afternoon. Once there, he would discover both of his friends waiting for him as planned. One of his two fellow hunters, Vincent Alvarez, at least in part, could collaborate the incident. From his position, he witnessed the strange glowing craft moving over the trees. It would then take off with a great pace into the sky. This would likely have been while Shrum was battling with the strange creatures. So there may not have been like a full second witness, but at least towards the end when the ship took off, at least one of the other hunters did see that aspect of it. So whether it's alien or it's human, like we're kind of referring to, like at least there's a second collaborating person that at least saw something. Yeah, got any thoughts on that before you hop back in?
No, I'm going to save mine on that for conclusions.
Okay. Incidentally, all three of the men would return to the destination later that day after hearing of Shrum's story. They did find several of the arrows he had fired, as well as several pieces of charred clothing. However, the coins had been thrown at them had seemingly been scooped up by these menacing visitors before they left. Like I mentioned, they took all of the coins, which again, going into the whole mineral thing, kind of weird. His two friends would believe his claims, though, in due part to Alvarez's own sighting of the glowing craft leaving the scene. After hearing of the encounter, Shrum's mother-in-law told an astronomer friend from the local college. The astronomer friend would immediately contact the nearby McSellian Air Force Base. He would inform them of the account and the location of the witness. Even more bizarre, instead of visiting him at home to listen to his version of the events, even though he had not made a report, they would arrange to meet in an empty house at an off-base housing development. So I'm sure you probably have some comments on that.
Yeah, this just seems like, typical Men in Black type shit, just behaving erratically and trying to keep people in the dark and just kind of trying to not let anybody know whether, this is a real Men in Black encounter or it's government agents or whatever. But yeah, I'm going to save some of my thoughts for conclusions. So
I just like the off-base housing development in an empty house. Like that's just such a weird
specific detail. Yeah.
Shrum would agree to the meeting. The two officers present would listen to his account and then confiscate several of the arrows. Later claims suggest that these had shavings of the robot on them. Then, though, they would insist that what he had just described to them hadn't happened, or not in the way he remembered. Furthermore, they would present several alternative scenarios, as if giving him the opportunity to pick one for himself. He would eventually agree that he wasn't certain of what he had seen, if for no other reason other than to keep his employers from facing similar questions. Shrum had stuck to the same story and version of events for over half a century, and surely a hoaxer would have made sure at least one of the other hunters witnessed the event in full, for authenticity, if nothing else. Perhaps the fact that they didn't is proof enough for such authenticity. And do you got any comments on that before we hop into similar accounts and theories?
I'm going to let you roll with theories and similar accounts, and then I might pop in from time to time in this section. I don't want to kind of derail your process here, so carry on.
Okay, so just before we hop into that, over here on screen, this is supposedly a picture of the final encounter. As you can see, you got Shrum here hiding up in the tree. You got several of these things, well, two of the humanoids trying to climb up, robot standing over here by the rock, another robot, and then the other two humanoids checking out some type of vegetation. And not his main description, but at least in this picture, and I'm not saying this is any important detail, I'm just saying just for sake of it, tell me these don't look like the night crawlers.
Fresno night crawler?
Yeah, like tell me that doesn't look like a night crawler.
Yeah, they got arms, but other than that, it's basically spot on.
Yeah, it's a little more cartoony of a drawing, so I know this isn't like the perfect rendition, but just a funny little side note.
And a lot of these drawings are really cartoony.
Yeah. So. And I believe that's the last picture I have for this. Okay, so I can close that out and bring up the main screen here. And going into similar accounts and theories, there are certainly other accounts on record that speak of robotic creatures, accompanying flesh and blood aliens, or aliens using some sort of robotic suits. Ones we recently cover already include the Pascagoula abduction and the Flatwoods monster sightings, as we were kind of talking about, but I also forgot to include the Hopkinsville goblins, which I would have done, and I'm glad that we kind of fit that in throughout the notes. More recently, the Peruvian face peelers, which was covered and investigated thoroughly by Tim Alberino, who is a frequent guest on Blurry Creatures podcast and runs a lot of his own channels and does a lot of fascinating work if you're not familiar with Tim Alberino. But before I get into the Peruvian face peelers, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, I think this is probably a good spot for me to kind of jump in and share what I think my prevailing theory about all this is. So when I was reading through the notes, I was kind of on board with all this. You know, like you said, we kind of connected it a little bit to Pascagoula, which I think would kind of be fun to go back and re-examine at this point with a lot more of the experience and research and I guess perspective that we've got at this point. But anyway, you know, I went pretty deep in Flatwoods when I did that episode, and I found a lot of things in not just the main encounter, but kind of ancillary encounters that led me to believe that something legitimately strange happened there. Like, I really don't believe that was some sort of human government intervention type situation. And I was, like I said, really on board with this whole Donald Shrum account when I read through the notes. What really changed my mind, again, was that depiction of the robot. And after seeing that, I'm kind of on board with your human intervention theory for this in particular, because it just seems to me like at this point, one of two things are possible. The dude made this whole thing up, which I don't really think. I think something legitimately weird happened to him. I mean, like you said, his friend corroborated seeing the UFO or the light or whatever. He didn't even have his name
attached to the story for years. He didn't even really want to tell the story. Like
exactly.
He wasn't out in the open trying to make sure everybody knew his story, which again, if you were going to hoax it, why would you try to keep it a secret? That's weird.
Yes, and a lot of this stuff, you know, for whatever nefarious government agenda they had, this all seems like stuff that the government could have theoretically done in 1964, and it seems like this is kind of the direction you would go at that point in time if you were trying to make, you know, I'm going to talk about Back to the Future again. It's sort of like Marty McFly wearing like the suit when he went back to the 50s and like scaring the dudes with the DeLorean and, you know, making them think that he was Darth Vader from the planet Uranus or what. Like, this is basically that. Like, it seems like the government could have kind of pulled the wool over somebody's eyes with this kind of stuff in 1964. So after going through the photo, well, they weren't photos, the artistic renderings, we'll say, I'm all for the human intervention angle on this particular encounter.
See, and this is why I wanted to cover this one so bad, is because I've been on this continuous thing of trying to kind of like solidify my theory, and I'm trying to find like prime perfect examples. And I feel like Pascagoula is another really, really good one because of the mask line and just the robotic component to it, because it seems like I'm trying to collect like I don't want to say like a checklist because I don't want to be stuck to a box, but like a motif for these human encounters, or human UFO encounters, whatever you want to call them, where it seems like the typical motif for a lot of them is that there's two different variations of beings that are there. It seems like one of them is more of this alien feel and one of them is more of a robotic feel. And that seems to be this continuous thing that you see through almost everything. Because even Pascagoula, the two robotic things that kidnapped the guys, and then they had the alien-looking girl that looked like she had the mask line on the actual ship. So, you know, I don't know how many people are diving into this that heavy, but, you know, maybe we could start kind of making like a... you know, like somewhat of a checklist to say, like, there's a good possibility that this might actually have been government interference. And, you know, if we start having, you know, black Suburbans sitting outside our houses, we really know we're on something.
Well, you know, like I've said on the show repeatedly, I think obviously aliens exist. I think there's something, you know, out there, quote unquote. But I do think their visitations and interventions are relatively few and far between. Obviously, I think, you know, back in ancient times, things like that happen. But I think a lot of the stuff we chalk up as like alien encounters, especially, you know, since like 50s, 60s, could be chalked up to government intervention and government experimentation, whether that be, you know, government aircraft that people see in the sky or this kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, as we get deeper into all this research and talking to people and diving into these topics, like you said, checklist might not be, you know, the best word because, like you said, you don't want to kind of paint yourself into a corner. But yeah, just looking for these reoccurring motifs, I think, is what's important. And like we always say, look for the connections between stuff. The answers, as best as we'll ever find them, lie in the connections.
And you want to talk about weird, we're going to get into this other one. I got some additional details to add in, which also will continue on with what we're talking about. Getting into the Peruvian face peelers. This one comes directly, this is kind of like a paragraph because I couldn't find a really good explanation for this because it seems like
face peelers is one of the rocks upon which this church is built. Like Peruvian face peelers is like your big thing. Like feral people in the Smoky Mountains is mine. Like those are the rocks this church is built upon.
See, and that's, I want to do a really good just episode on the Peruvian face peelers, but there's this hard thing where the actual encounters that happened,
I'll show you a hard thing
in 2023 were like, they're only really covered by like Tim Alberino, and then everything else is like from like Spanish news reports. Like it's really, really hard to just like collaborate the details considering that I don't speak like Peruvian Spanish. Like the only person I can really get the information from is Tim Alberino. But when you look up Peruvian face peelers, you get all of the like folklore of the Peruvians, like what they believe the face peelers was, that goes back into like their ancient folklore. But I don't think that's necessarily it. I think it's finding a niche, but hold that thought. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. And we are back to the show. Let's hop right in. Let me just hop right into this, just because, like I said, I took a couple of direct quotes from him just because it's the best explanation I could find for the 2023 events. But yeah, this comes directly from Tim on a podcast. What are the Peruvian face peelers? Back in 2023, there is a series of videos that went viral, and these videos were captured in the Peruvian Amazon. Chaotic scenes in which the villagers were running around screaming, saying they were being assaulted by aliens, and they were using the terms pila cara, which is face peeler. I had to go down there to investigate a particular incident, which was the attempt to abduction of a 15-year-old girl. And she told me one evening she was in her backyard and she bent over to pick up some fruit. She felt a wind at her back and she looked up to see what was generating the wind. And she saw this person dressed in black body armor flying on a disc. And then he landed next to her and he grabbed her from behind. He put his hand over her mouth. Another one lands in front of her and he grabs her legs. They took out a long tube, and this and had this cream in it. And the guy that was holding her mouth from behind, he started to smear the cream all over her face. And as she was doing it, the guy in front said, be careful, don't put too much on because you're going to ruin the flesh. And supposedly that was in like Peruvian Spanish, by the way. After they applied this stuff to her face, they took out a laser scalpel and began to make an incision under her jawline. And she starts to struggle, and as they're beginning to cut, she starts to freak out. And as she gets her hands underneath the helmet of the guy behind her, and she starts to lift up on the helmet, he gets agitated, he freaks out a bit, and they drop her. She lets out a blood-curdling scream. Her brother and a group of other villagers come out running instantly, and Talia, before she passes out, she said that the assailant said, let's go. We got to get out of here. And then one of them said, no, we can't just leave her here. That was it. Though that was the full quote. But just to throw it in here, of course. So of course, already have this robotic component, like I was kind of mentioning. You have two, they were speaking, Earth languages. Like he said that they were speaking Peruvian Spanish. And she mentioned from one of the reports that I was hearing from him, that one of them sounded like he was fluent in Peruvian Spanish, and the other guy sounded like he was an English speaker trying to speak Peruvian Spanish. So just another weird thing with the dialects here. And to throw in another weird detail with the whole Peruvian face peelers thing, when all of the main reports were coming out and the viral videos, which the viral videos were like a video of a body that they found on the side of a river where the whole entire like face, skin, everything that was off the head was like completely down to the bone. Like you could see the bone like perfectly like white, looked like it was like picked clean, and it was just on the head. That was it. That was one of the videos that went viral. So they supposedly sent in the military to check out the area to see if anything was going on. They came back to the news reports and said nothing's going on, everything's fine, blah 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 blah. And when Tim Alberino went down there, he was talking to the villagers directly, because for anybody that knows kind of his background, he spent years in Peru, and he's been researching there forever. Like he's really good with the language. He's really good with the locals. He did this whole mission that he put together with his church to go out there and try to help these people out, to investigate and everything like that. And when he got there, he said that it was such a difficult place to get to, where you had to fly into a certain area, fly into another area, get on a boat, take that to a certain spot, get off, go across the landmass, get onto another boat, take that down to a spot. And it was like a couple days to get into it. So very, very difficult. He said that the military never showed up. They were never even there in the first place, and they basically just came back and reported saying, oh yeah, everything's fine, even though they were never there. So another weird thing, everything's good, everything's fine, and then you have an English speaker and a Peruvian speaker, so another government connection, definitely possible.
I'm gonna go real fucking weird. You ready?
Yes, I'm ready for this.
All right. So obviously, this is a human thing that's going on. These aren't aliens. This is humans in a suit with some sort of fucking hoverboard, wearing masks.
Taking advantage of the folklore of the area, clearly.
And one particular phrase that you put in these notes is what made this click for me. Can you guess what that phrase is?
Which part? I'm curious.
Well, I'll just tell you. The abduction of a 15-year-old girl. That should be red flags right fucking there. So not to get like too conspiratorial, political, anything like that. Man, this kind of sounds to me like some sort of like fucking trafficking, frazzle drip, elites hunting people type situation that was going on here. And I never put all those pieces together till I saw in writing that phrasing, abduction of a 15-year-old girl.
I know the first body that they found was like a 40-year-old man, and supposedly there was a few other people.
Well, it could have just been hunting him,
That's what I was going to say. The difference is the 15-year-old girl got away. So what was the interest? What was the difference? Like, they were trying to be like more gentle with her. Is it because again, getting into the frazzle drip thing with like wearing the face, inducing fear, all that type of shit? It just seemed like they were a bit different with the 15-year-old girl, because if a 15-year-old girl was able to struggle and get away from lifting the helmet and get away, like how the hell were, grown-ass men able to get away? Like, kind of weird, right? It seems like they probably used a different process for this girl than they did for everybody else. And after this 15-year-old girl, there really wasn't much heard from them after that, because they clearly fucked up and they had to draw back.
Well, if we're going to go down these conspiratorial rabbit holes, which we're already there, so let's fucking go. I mean, yeah, like you said, maybe they were much more gentle, for lack of a better term, with this girl, because I mean, if we're going to entertain these type of conversations, and I don't don't cancel us. I'm throwing out hypotheticals. For these people, this 40-year-old man wouldn't be worth, quote unquote, anything. Like a 15-year-old girl for these people is always worth something. And everybody knows where I'm going with that. So, I mean, I think in light of all of that, this makes a lot of sense.
And trying to think about the whole like face peeling aspect, like this is going to sound super fucking weird, but okay, so you have the guy that sounded like he was an English speaker that was speaking Peruvian Spanish. So
wouldn't that make perfect sense? Like there was some English guy like down here hunting with their local hunting guide, you know?
See, so that's where the kind of connection comes in. Like maybe there is connection to like U.S. government, considering this is only South America. And what could the possible interest be of the government collecting faces? I mean, you know, it could have something else beyond just that. They could also be collecting faces for the sake of, you know, maybe trying to create like a, like, you know, they say that you can't create a face, like, you know, every face that you see is a face that you've seen somewhere before, blah, 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 blah. You know, if you're trying to create like a face that you could use to just go and do operations that nobody would have any connection to, nothing to, you go and you pick somebody from a village in the middle of, you know, the Amazon where nobody has probably seen their face outside of the village, and you have like a fresh face that you can use for like secret operations. You know what I mean? Like, could it be possible that they were collecting like the faces for the sake of, you know, creating more of those like flesh masks? And like I said,
Mission Impossible shit.
You need like a face that doesn't have a connection anywhere. Like, because if you have a face that you take from somebody, you know, from a city, something like that, it's all over security cameras, it's already tracked, it's already known. If you're going to look for like new faces that won't be recognized anywhere, that you can use for secret operations, the place to go would be the middle of the fucking Amazon in Peru.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I promise this is the last tangent I'm going to take us down. But, you know, I'm a big sports fan. Have you heard about the LA Clippers' new basketball arena?
I have not. I'm not a big basketball guy. You know me, I'm the hockey guy.
So the owner of the LA Clippers is one of the guys who, you know, started Microsoft with who's the Microsoft guy? Bill Gates?
Yeah, Bill Gates.
Steve Ballmer is this guy's name. But anyway, so, you know, he said he's going to build this, you know, most advanced sporting arena ever created, and it's completely transactionless, not cashless, transactionless. Like when you go in, you like scan your face and it like links to this fucking app, and like you just go up to the counter and you take, you know, a soda or a hot dog or whatever. You go to the merch store, you take a jersey off the rack, it scans you when you leave, and you know, you tie your bank account to this app, and like there's no transactions at all. So kind of piggybacking off of that, if again, getting super duper conspiratorial here, but if the direction we're all going is this fucking 1984 ass world we're all going to be living in, there's a lot of value in having a face that can't be traced and doesn't exist, isn't there?
That's what I'm saying, man. Weird another tied, another government connection with this stuff. For another reason why the government/governments might want to abduct people secretly and put it under the facade of extraterrestrials or aliens. But getting into the last couple paragraphs, theories, all that kind of stuff, there are also numerous accounts of witnesses being knocked unconscious by strange vapors. Perhaps one particular case that contains both of the elements of robotics, leaping ability, and vapor, the blue flames, would be the strange accounts of Spring Hill Jack from Victorian England. Those roots stretch into legend and folklore, but which has also been interest of UFO researchers. And again, not saying that the government goes back this far or anything like that, but, you know, hiding under the facade of folklore, you know, like you take advantage of the area, like Peruvian face peelers, you know, National Forest already kind of building up a motif for having weird and high strangeness things happen.
And another motif, we talked a lot in the Spring Hill Jack episode about how, you know, this very likely was probably some sort of, elite or royalty, or at the very least like police officers, and they were largely preying on, you know, disenfranchised people. Like one of the victims was like a 15-year-old prostitute or something like that.
Another 15-year-old girl. I think it was 13-year-old prostitute.
Yeah, so point stands. But yeah, so that's not even a connection that I thought about till we got going through this, but you know, that kind of speaks for itself. Here's, you know, a tale as old as time, people terrorizing, or elites, let's say, terrorizing disenfranchised people with whatever means they have in that day and age.
See, that's why I was trying to show two sides of this, because we obviously related that to human components. We related like Flatwoods and Pascagoula to maybe, Flatwoods probably more extraterrestrial, Pascagoula maybe alien in the middle, but that's why I want to bring it in here, because it shows not just beyond the alien perspective of things, but there is a history, again, like you mentioned, of elites just messing with people with the available equipment that they have at the time, just for the sake of doing it. But getting into the very last paragraph, the top theories online seem to be that it was a true alien encounter, some sort of secret military technology that he was hallucinating, or potentially psychological effects from experiments like MK Ultra / continued human experiments, which, as we've been talking about throughout the episode, and we also have a previous episode on if anybody wants to go and check that out. And before you throw in any additional comments, I just wanted to throw in right here, I did find the original interview from Donald Shrum back in 1964. It's an audio recording. Actually, I don't know if it's 1964, but it's around that time, 60s, 70s. But it's an audio recording. It's about 10 minutes long. I didn't put it into the episode because I didn't know if you guys want to sit and listen to that. But if anybody is interested in hearing the words straight from the horse's mouth, I'm going to throw it at the very end of the episode after our end theme song. So stick around for that if you guys are interested in that. But
all right, guys, we got to take another break. We'll be right back. And now we're getting back to the bizarre.
Go ahead and throw in your thoughts and theories before we wrap everything up, man.
Yeah, I'm not going to add a whole lot here. I think I've kind of already gone through my prevailing theory about this. Like I said, I was kind of all on board with Donald when I just read through the notes. Again, seeing the depiction of the robots, what really made me reevaluate my thinking on this. And now I'm full on this was some sort of government intervention experimentation. And I think it was a lot of fun to kind of tie not only this encounter, but these newer ones with like the Peruvian face peelers and even Spring Hill Jack into like kind of more modern day conspiracies, if you will. And I'm going to leave it at that. But yeah, great job on this one. I think this is one of your best episodes you've ever put together, if I may say so myself. And I've had a lot of fun talking about this one. So yeah, thank you a lot for putting all this together. Do you have any kind of take home thoughts for everybody?
Well, I'm glad that this was unintentionally one of those episodes that I can kind of solidify my human intervention theory. And originally you kind of were with me originally when I shared that first episode with you, but I'm glad that this one was one of those ones that you kind of had one of those back and forths with. So it was kind of like, when you covered the spaceman photo, that in the beginning of it you were all on board. You hit the middle, you're like, I don't believe any of this shit, and then you get to the end and you're like, yup, it was human. So I'm glad that I was able to give you that emotional ride like you're able to give me on the spaceman one. So
all right. So on that note, if anyone would like to get in touch with us for any reason whatsoever, Shane, tell them how they can do that.
First and foremost, you guys can email us at bizarreencounters@outlook.com. You guys can get a hold of us through social media. Instagram and Facebook are the two that we are the most active on. Or you guys can also get a hold of us through the submission form, which is available on the top of the link tree. And the last way you guys can get a hold of us is off the hotline. You guys can call or text that 24/7. That number is 313-364-1551. And if you happen to miss that, it is available down in the show description, and all of the other links that I mentioned are available off of the link tree.
And as always, you guys be sure to show some love to our friends and sponsors of the show. We've got our buddies Rick and Hans with I Know Squatch for all your squatchy gear needs. We got our buddy Dave, a.k.a. the Snarly Yow with Snarly Yow Natural Products. He makes some awesome beard oil and body wash and things like that. Also puts on some kick-ass events in the kind of West Virginia, Maryland area. So check him out. And then we also got our buddy Joe with Crypto Teology for all your wearable cryptids.
And if you guys have some time, check out our other awesome friends with affiliate links, Dimension Devices and Sticker Mule, with additional discounts and credits available. And more information on that is also available down in the show notes.
And all this shit is in the link tree in the show description.
And with that, just like this episode, it got more bizarre as it went on.
How bizarre! How bizarre!
So just like us, just like the show tends to do and continuously does, always, always stay bizarre. Bizarre. Bizarre.
Rest in peace, brother.
Come here, little fuck! What is that fucking thing?
was up by Lockhaven Lake, just out of Cisco Grove, and I got separated from the rest of the group, and we went out too far before dark. The area was real rough terrain. I got to the point where I couldn't see, so I just climbed the highest mountain I could find right around that area, and lit a fire just to see if I could get some type of response to that. This was to the people that was to the other party. And I waited until the fire went out and I didn't have any response, so I climbed up in a tree nearby. And I guess I was there a half hour or so. And I spied this light, which I thought was a helicopter, just bobbing up and down over the surface, and they go up above the skyline and then down below the timber line. So I jumped out of the tree and started I built 3 small fires on this rock, and still try to attract attention. As soon as I did that, this light turned and came towards me, and I still thought at that time it was a helicopter. And there's a ranger station nearby. I thought maybe they contacted this and they were looking for me. But then when it came right up to me, there was no sound. It just hovered there, just the light is all I could see. Oh, I'd say about, it's hard to say, about maybe 50 yards, maybe not that. It was fairly close. Was it a bright light? It was, it wasn't a light that showed a flash or a spot. It was just like a glow or something. It just, anyway, they made a half circle around me, and when it got out over this canyon, then I saw that there was 3 other objects, just flat, I can't describe the size. They remind me of kites. There's 3 of them spaced in equal parts behind this light. And connection between the 2? Well, I couldn't see any connection. It was just all I could see was the moon reflecting on these objects. And while I was watching it, there was something dropped out of the bottom of the first object behind the light. Yes. And it went down down in this canyon. I couldn't see it anymore, so I was still watching the light, and it was just hovering. And the next thing I heard was, just a few minutes later, it was crashing through the brush uphill from me. And I saw up on the top of the ridge this little blinking light, and it looked somewhat of a dome or something. I couldn't see the whole object, just reflecting off of that. And then I saw one of these men come into view, and he stopped by this man's knee. I don't know if he was curious what it was, but he was messing around with it some way. Could you see what he was wearing? It was just a white outfit. I don't know if it was white or not. It was a light colored, looked like a suit of some type, and didn't look like there was any helmet. It just covered the whole body, though, everything. How about arms, legs? Yeah, everything was covered. Yeah, it was just like a human form, with the exception it didn't have a neck. It just a head. It looked like just a head on the shoulder, and it was joined by this other same form. And they came right under the tree, within 12 foot under me, and just looked up at me. And I was all dressed in camouflage clothing, so I thought maybe I could stay still enough. Yeah. And then I saw these 2 big eyes coming through working its way down this hill. And they just all the size of a silver dollar, and they looked like they had actual flame inside. But they had nothing to do with these other 2 individuals. No, it came up separate from them. And it stood kind of uphill from me, about 12, 13 feet, something like that. And I noticed that kind of a white smoke was coming out of its mouth. And in the next instant, I started kind of gasping for breath, and I kind of temporarily lost consciousness. I fell over my bowl here on the limb. And at that time, I thought maybe I was too close. It was radioactivity or something like that of that sort. And I thought maybe they were out to get me then, so I shot my bow at them. I hit this one 3 times, this one that was made out of metal. And every time I hit it, it was just like a arc flash or taking 2 electrical wires and snapping them together. It wasn't any good. No, and it shoved them back a little bit, but that's all it did. And did you fire the other 2? No, I didn't. He was the only one that was doing any damage. I fired to the inlet permission. And what? And then I had several books of matches with me, so I lit one and threw it down just to see if maybe they were afraid of fire. And they stepped back a little bit, so I started I lit my hat on fire and threw it down. When I did that, this saucer or whatever it was, this light, made that cooling noise, and then it just shot way up in the sky. It stayed way up real high then. And these others always moved back. They moved back away from the fire. So I saw that they were afraid of fire, so I just started tearing my camouflage clothing off. I had my regular clothes underneath. And started lighting it and tried to catch what little brush there was around there on fire. And as long as the fire was burning, they stayed back, but then I ran out of matches before too long. And so I climbed as high as I could in the tree right to the top, and took my belt and wrapped around me in the tree just in case I did pass out like that again. And as soon as the fires died down, they came back in underneath the tree. And this one called him a robot, yes, when the smoke would come out of his mouth, I'd start kind of gas for breath. It was just like nitrogen or something would take the place of air. That's no smell or no odor. I just couldn't breathe. It just like I wasn't getting any air. And then I'd pass out for just an instant, and as soon as I'd wake up, I'd get the dry heaves and everything. I found out that by shaking the tree, that as long as the tree would move, they would step back away from it. So I repeatedly done this all night. But they try to boost each other up the tree trunk, and as soon as I moved the tree, then they'd step back. And it seemed like that smoke would come, and I'd black out for an instant, and as soon as I'd wake up, I could see them. They'd just be starting up the tree, so I knew I wasn't out too long. Did the robot ever attempt to climb the tree? Just the other 2 individuals. He was down there, but underneath the tree there, he never attempted to climb it or anyway. And this went on all night, and several times I saw these lighter objects go over rocks and stuff, and I could hear crashing through the brush around the area. And close to morning, the sky was just starting to turn a little pink, and this other robot came up, and there was 2 of them underneath the tree, and they were standing facing each other. I could see them down through the branches, and it just seemed like arc flashes or electrical flashes going back. They were just real bright flashes in between them, and that smoke and stuff really poured up through the tree, and I blacked out then, and the next thing I woke up, couldn't have been more than a half hour later, because it was still kind of dark, and it was just getting light, and I was hanging from my belt by the top of the tree, and when I Yeah,